Right, go on then.
All right.
Do you want to introduce? Should we introduce him for? Do you want to introduce yourself first, mate? Like, what is it that you do? And
Yeah,
who
so
do
we're
you
going to do
help?
it anyway.
What's
I was
that?
going to do that anyway. I wasn't going to go bang quick. What do you think of this?
Hey, I'm the alpha male, right? Out of the two.
No, you're the beta. So
I'm the
I'll put my arm around you, so-
I'm the beta. I'm the beta boy.
But yeah, I mean, as you said, do you want to let us know who you are, what you do, what you specialise in?
My name's Greg Foley. I'm a nutritionist, originally based from Dublin, but I've been in Cardiff now for 12 years. Former personal trainer with both of you guys, and I say specialise. Whether people I always struggle to find a word for this, right? Because people will say like functional medicine, holistic medicine, Chinese medicine. I don't know, but I probably use the word functional medicine, and my passion in that would be digestive health and gut health for sure.
Nice, yeah. And then, so briefly, what brought you onto that? What inspired you to go down that route, as opposed to everyone does fat loss, don't they? And things.
So the same as the reason that the vast majority of us got into this industry, we had that problem initially.
Yeah.
So I was 21, horrible digestive dysfunction. Western medicine doesn't really have an answer for those in the middle, functional gastrointestinal problems. And my brother worked with a guy in Dublin called Owen Lacey.
Oh yeah.
And he was the only guy, and my brother was sending me down to see him, and I was thinking, this is a bit voodoo, this is a little bit off. But through that process that I went through with him, he managed to solve 90% of the issues I had.
Nice.
Through lifestyle supplementation. And that was just as I was getting into the fitness industry. So that did light a fire under me a little bit. Knowing the percentages of people that struggle with this problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what drove me down this road.
What was it specifically? What was the issue that you had?
Really bad, not necessarily call it indigestion, but bloating and at the time it was from almost anything I ate. So if I tried to tidy up my diet, it didn't necessarily get better. And actually sometimes with it, if I ate ultra processed food, it felt a little bit better.
Right.
Because the lack of digestion that's actually needed with that food. So it wasn't, I went down the route of food intolerances. I went down the route of, like I said, trying to clean up my diet and eat a whole food diet, but nothing seemed to help. Now, the issue with that back then was there weren't good stool tests available at the time. So they used to be like CDSA, where they'll culture whatever they find on your stool. And so I didn't actually do one. So the supplements that I took solved a problem. I don't actually know what that problem was when I think back on it, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
I imagine there was an issue of some sort of bacterial overgrowth that just was unmanaged. Because as a child, I wasn't a sickly child, but I had an operation when I was 8 and intravenous antibiotics and continuous antibiotics then for 3-4 months afterwards. And I'd love to trace it back to that, but I do have a feeling a lot of the issues began after that.
Is there anything now that you've got to be wary of with your diet or not? Or are you just good to go now with everything?
The only thing that bothers me still would be if I eat a lot of eggs. Will still bother me. So whether that's a sulfur issue or something, I'm not sure. But if I eat other sulfur-containing foods, I can eat as much cruciferous vegetables as I want, and it doesn't bother me. Maybe it's just I'm still not great with the egg white, or the albumin in egg white might still bother me if I overconsume them. Right, 1 or 2 doesn't bother me. So
just off a tangent on that, where do you stand then on the whole personalized nutrition plans where I'm not going to I know you like to name people, but I'm not going to name them. But
He's nicer than me.
but where they go and test you and it's all right, you shouldn't be consuming this, you shouldn't be consuming that.
So intolerance testing?
Yeah, I mean, we did one years back, I think, at SOS, where some guy came in. I think they just did blood pricks. And I remember mine coming back and it's you can't eat eggs, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. And I was like, I'm screwed then, aren't I?
So there's ELISA testing, which is slightly more advanced testing. Because I don't do food intolerance testing with clients or anything like that. ELISA testing seems to be more accurate than some of the direct-to-consumer stuff that you see online. But the research has been pretty comprehensive on that. That they take these clients, check them, and then remove those foods and see if their digestive system gets better or symptoms get better. They don't.
No, yeah.
So they just don't really. So in that kind of circumstance, I'm like, all right, you can create fear in clients around these foods, or what tends to work, I will probably get into this at some stage, I'm sure, what tends to work better and is a really broad diet is a low FODMAP diet tends to work for most.
Have you done
A hell of a lot more.
the vertical diet? Have you by Stan F-Team? What's your thoughts on that?
Vaguely. I've heard of it before, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. So he basically made a diet that was easy, low FODMAP, essentially. That's what I thought of it for, because he trains like Hathor Bjornsson and these huge guys, and they gotta just go through so many calories in a day that it's just easy on their digestive system. So I think it's like a lot of like lean beef mince and like white rice and all that sort of peppers and stuff like that. And I was looking at it for a while because I was like trying to like get a bunch of calories in for my powerlifting. But yeah, Stan Efferdine, so you're not familiar with him
These
at all? No.
strength people, man, I have no idea.
Yeah, no idea.
Not
yeah.
anymore. Like I used to when I was like personal training and I was more based around the strength side of things. I was, but as I've leaned slightly more towards the nutrition side of things. I just don't pay attention to it that much anymore. No.
Yeah. Well, because he trains like all of the current like strong men and stuff like that as well. But what is your training like at the moment? But I know we're going to go on to the gut health stuff. What is your training like at the moment? What sort of stuff are you doing these days?
I've gotten. No, lazy is the wrong word. I haven't gotten lazy with training, but I've leaned away because like the biggest liberation I ever got in my life, because people can probably tell if they watch my video, I'm just all legs, right? My torso's like this big, and especially like with lower body, we used to always be on the impression you had to back squat, right? And I used to dread it all week to have to back squat. I just hated the movement. I hated the bit soft, I suppose, in some ways. Hated the pressure that's created from a heavy back squat. And when I finally just said to myself, you know what, I'm not going to do that anymore, it liberated me from the old mentality that we kind of used to have towards training. So a lot of the time now, I'll just pick movements, obviously, for muscle groups. A lot of the time, I'll just lock myself into machines, complete movements now. Because I don't have any knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain anymore. So I've become very, very simplistic in terms of like my training modalities over the last 5-ish years.
I remember the days when you used to train with Dean a lot.
I was going to say that. I remember that one.
Beast, mate. Dean, do you keep in touch with Dean?
Yeah, I still speak to Dean. Yeah,
he's a lovely guy,
he's
Dean.
a lovely Dean.
Yeah, he's a beast. Mate.
Yeah, just built for weightlifting. Like that was what he was meant to do.
I remember he was, because at the time, like I didn't really know what heavy weights like looked like at the time. I remember he was the first dude. I think he was squatting like 170 really comfortably, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty heavy, you know, for this. And he apparently squatted like some huge weights when he was younger as well, you know. But yeah, Dean, I remember Dean's a good guy.
Dean was a beast.
But anyway, sorry, I derailed it there.
Not at all. So obviously you work for Muscle Intelligence. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that? So before we go into it.
Yeah, so Muscle Intelligence is a company that was founded by Ben Pakulski. So I think he came second in the Arnold Classic. So bodybuilding background. But as he got slightly older, so as he got to 35 plus, he realized that there's kind of this catch that, and it's what he plays on a little bit, there's kind of this catch of his thing is like when men hit 40, you tend to see the guys who looked after themselves, right? So like his target market would be guys 40 plus. And a lot of the time we're dealing with type A executive clients, and so a lot of them have sacrificed their 20s and 30s in pursuit of
wealth and everything,
business goals, whatever they are, and now they're finding that their health is actually their limitation to push forward. So we deal with a lot of them. We try to unravel some of the metabolic problems that they have in the most efficient way we can.
Nice. So with that, obviously a lot of it is like you're obviously transforming their whole life, but a big part of that is obviously like a body transformation, isn't it? Like from what I've seen. So like with that, what mistakes do you regularly think are not considered, maybe with some other people who do body transformations when working with a client, like from a nutrition aspect?
I think, and this is coming back, like I know we were discussing it before we jumped on, is people always talk about like, oh, it has to be sustainable.
Yeah.
So like slow, steady progress is the only way to achieve a long-term goal, when realistically it's not. Like the guys who, and you see, like I said about the macnutrition qualification, the research is in there that's kind of showing that actually aggressive dieting can be just as effective.
Motivational as well, isn't it?
Motivational,
Yeah.
right? Because like guys come in and sign up with you and they pay a lot of money on the onset, and you're like, "Do you know what? We're going to go, 0.4 to 0.8 of body fat a week in order to achieve your goals." People are like, dude, that's like just over a pound a week, man. You're like, okay. If you think you can stick to this, like we can push really hard on the onset and we can lose 10 pounds in a month. And I find that that's something that I've shifted away more towards, not with every client, because it has to be individualized, right? Based off personality, based off what they want. But I do notice that like getting aggressive from the onset seems to obviously, and for obvious reasons, gets people way more engaged in the diet straight away.
Yeah.
So yeah, like in terms of like body composition, fat loss in particular, I think it's the aggression coming out of the gates that has changed for me with quite a lot of clients.
Right.
Nice.
Do you think it's a personality type thing too? Like those type A personalities are better suited to that, would you say, generally?
Most.
Yeah.
Now, like some of them, surprisingly, you think that it automatically transfers. So like effort in one thing transfers to effort in the other. And I think it does with a lot of people, but you still find really similar hang-ups than you'd find in, and I don't mean this in any way, but like Gen Pop, right? Like you still find a lot of the same hang-ups, slightly different and nuanced, because like a lot of these guys might have to travel a lot. They might have a lot of meals out where alcohol is almost expected.
Right.
But yeah, some of those type A guys are like, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
Which can be obviously really nice, but it doesn't happen throughout like every single client.
Right,
Like you still have to navigate all their life problems just like you would have to with, like I said, Gen Pop.
Right, I've got you. Yeah.
And then obviously with it, like so like stress is pretty much unavoidable, like in everyone's life, and that obviously can play a huge part in things like digestion, I guess adherence and everything. So like what do you think are the big rocks from a nutrition standpoint that you utilize when a client comes in and they're like highly stressed at work, family life, and they're coming in, they're wanting to like get a body transformation?
That's a good question, man. So like, how do you, because a lot of the time with these people, you can't remove things.
Yeah.
Right? Because like their dads, their husbands, they work 80 hours a week, they fly. Like the stress is so overwhelming, you see, for a lot of these guys. So it's creating stress resiliency almost to a certain extent with a lot of them. So it's not necessarily removing like something from their life, because there is stuff that we can do. So we do use like an executive. So like there's a lady who'll find places for them to eat and deliver them food and stuff like that. So you can take some of that stuff off them. But sometimes it's about creating like stress resiliency in these clients, because elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, what can we do to regulate that? So you'll find in a lot of them massively dysregulated blood sugar. So a lot of them you'll see come in with like pre-diabetic levels of HbA1c. Even though these guys look decent, half decent, whatever way you want to put it, you're seeing really high glucose, you're seeing really high HbA1c, and those things really play on, you can talk cortisol or whatever you want to talk, but like it really affects inflammatory state. It really affects their ability to be able to regulate their own emotion. So sometimes like using aerobic work, using supplementation sometimes to lower blood pressure, or just regulating their blood sugar plays a huge role in their ability to be able to maintain diet, but also to be able to be cognitively effective and lower stress.
And is there anything from like a supplement point of view that you utilize there or not?
For blood sugar, yeah. So the real simple stuff initially. So if we look at mitochondrial function, right? So like B vitamins can be effective in that way. Magnesium can be good to help regulate, especially the glucose side of things. And then you can start getting into stuff like berberine can be effective, chromium can be effective. So you can use this stuff to nudge it in the direction you're trying to get it. But a lot of the time it's just going to be dietary adherence and tidying that up first.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can use supplementation to regulate blood sugar quite well. Like berberine has been as comparable in terms of results to metformin in its effects for lowering blood sugar.
Yeah. Because metformin
it's
is used with PCOS, isn't it, typically?
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
So berberine works almost as well at lowering blood sugar as metformin does. Has similar side effects, though, which is often people don't.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right, so then big one, it's controversial one kind of thing is like, where do you stand on like the weight loss drugs? And like,
oh, I could go on about this one. I'm not against them at all. Genuinely, like I wrote, my boss asked me to write a big, huge breakdown of all the research on the GLP-1 agonists, and I think because we know that blood sugar, leptin resistance, all these things regulate appetite, and this is something I know very little about, but so I'm just putting it as like an adjunct, but like psychological resiliency and trauma and all those other things that play into like habits and food drive and food cravings. GLP-1s just regulate those things and just turn off the noise for a lot of people. So it allows them to reset habitual change really, really well. Like you look at some of the more anecdotal stuff on it, like people giving up cigarettes on it, people giving up alcohol on it, because there's something that it does to regulate dopamine in the brain a little bit more, as well as obviously regulating appetite. So you find that it has these really long-reaching effects, and even in addiction, there's talk of using them as an adjunct therapy with addiction.
oh, so not just using food then so much as a reward mechanism for like how they're feeling about, I don't know, day-to-day life or something, you mean?
Yeah. People do notice increased mood on GLP-1 agonists. Is that because it regulates their blood sugar? Maybe as well, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to have an anti-inflammatory effect on the brain as well, which is fascinating about them. Now, obviously, people hear the horror stories when they look at GLP-1s. And one, like, it's weird because some of them you see where like kidney failure is becoming one that I've seen once or twice in popular media. But realistically, I would always, and it confused me because obviously in popular media, they won't tell you mechanism, right? So why did it affect the kidneys in the way it did? Because when you look at most of the research, it improves kidney function because lowers blood sugar, lowers blood pressure, drops a bunch of body fat in people. So it's confusing that part of it. But there is like 0.5 to 1% of the population who will get something in the lines of gallstones, gastroparesis, or pancreatitis. And they're not like mild side effects.
No.
Right,
That's significant, right? So they're not the holy grail yet, but if you look at some of the research, some of the stuff that's coming through the pipeline, there's over 400 different now research drugs for fat loss that are just going through phases and trials. So I think it's just going to become more advanced and more advanced to the stage where we can regulate this really, really well.
That's incredible.
That's the thing, it's like, it's a great drug though, isn't it? 'Cause obviously if someone comes in and they're grossly overweight, dropping their weight is obviously going to improve all their health markers, but then you've also got people who are like, do you know what? I'm going to Magaluf in 8 weeks and I just want to get the last 5 pounds off to be ripped. And it's like, yeah, like you said there on the potential side effects, like it's not even worth delving into that just to get, a bit of like fat loss from it.
Well, I've messed around with them all just to see what it feels like on them. And I remember, say Magaluf, I was going to Spain last year. Right?
It's like guilty.
but it was more of an experiment.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
How it feels. Yeah.
But I know what I'm like with all inclusive, right? I'm away with the family, so it's not a piss up, but I don't care what I look like topless in front of like my family. But I wanted to see what it was like while I was there, because when I lose structure, I can become a pig of a man. Like, so exposed to all this like highly palatable food, I could do 4 and 5. Well, not all fat, obviously, but like 4 and 5 pounds in a week. Yeah, really, really quickly, and it almost ruins my holiday because I feel like crap then for the rest 100%. Of it. So I did. I took 2 milligram of retatrutide, which is the relatively newer version, even of tirzepatide, and it was insane. Right. Like, so I didn't get any of the side effects. I was lucky because it's relatively lower dose, but like just the food noise wasn't there. So like when you walk into a room full of hyper palatable foods, you're much more inclined to make a better decision cognitively.
Really?
Yeah, because the really hyper palatable food doesn't appeal as much. Now, don't get me wrong. I still had ice cream while I was there, and I still did some of that stuff, but I was much more in control of it.
It's not like the light switch going on where you can't, like, we want to eat the whole thing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, it's, I suppose, a bit of a, maybe a better option for people? For instance, like, people get gastric bands and stuff like that. Would you say that this is a better option to exhaust first before going down the route of surgery or anything like that?
I've never looked into the research on gastric bands. So, like, in terms of side effects, I imagine they're probably worse, but I don't know. Right. And but with the GLP-1s, the one thing we don't know yet is, because obviously when you blast a receptor with something, so like if I take a bunch of testosterone, eventually my receptors for testosterone start to downregulate. Eventually there's that negative feedback loop that says don't produce it yourself. They don't really know if GLP-1 does that yet. So we've got GLP-1 receptors everywhere, which is weird, right? Why would we have GLP-1 receptors outside of the gut or the brain? Which it's nothing to do with this conversation, but I just find it weird, right? But yeah, so we don't know if the receptors downregulate. We don't know if our natural production of GLP-1 comes back relatively quickly. So I think that's one of the problems, because the weight regain is similar to just dieting, right? So if you diet down on normally or on GLP-1 agonists, the weight regain seems to be the same. Right. But I think that's something they're still trying to, and I haven't seen it yet because I haven't looked into it. In fairness, it was 3-4 months ago I did that. There could be research now that shows it. What happens to appetite? Like, so when they come off the GLP-1 and they're ravenous, is it just because they've lost 80 pounds and they have a new body weight now? Or
set point has changed, or
so like perfect. Like, is it the set point that's changed, or is there actually a problem now with GLP-1 receptors? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there yet. So like a lot of guys you'll see, like as crazy as he is, you know who he is, like Lyle McDonald.
Oh yeah.
Like he does a lot, he reads a lot of the research on GLP-1s, and he's a great guy to listen to for it. But he often mentions, like, for a lot of these people, once you start taking GLP-1s, if you want to maintain it, it's probably something you're going to have to use ongoing. Probably at lower dosages, yeah.
Right. Damn.
Something I actually, I'm not sure who actually mentioned this recently. They were talking about someone who's using that and has lost a lot of weight, and that they may then almost need to, like someone would take diet breaks, is that maybe they have periods throughout the year where they go on a GLP-1 to, like, almost maintain their weight. I don't know how that can work out. But.
That's good. It's like the continuous use of it's going to be really interesting to see. Like, even if you can get away with lowest effective dose, so like some of them, I don't know how they took it, but like you look at retatrutide, I took 2 milligrams. Some people, like, in the research, the end dose is 12. Like, I felt a tiny bit sickly when I first did the 2. I can't imagine how sick you'd feel on 12 right? And I'm wondering with a lot of them, because it's just staged, right? It's like, okay, you do it for this long, and they just follow the procedure, and you just keep upping it. I wonder if it's like, let's find a dose, right? So, like, if you get to 4 and you feel fine, just stay there. Or, like, as they continue, if they've dropped 40, 50 pounds, and then the hunger really starts to come on really aggressively, then maybe go up. But I think this just continuously stepping up the dosage might be an issue.
It's literally in the phases of experimentation, isn't it? Like, right now, like the first few years of trying to find out best practices, and that's what it sounds like.
Ozempic's been around for over a decade.
Really?
Yeah, and that's why I was really surprised that, like, it hasn't become such a massive thing until the last few years.
I thought it was literally last few years that it's been around.
The newer ones, like tirzepatide's only been the last few years, and retatrutide actually isn't technically available yet on prescription. You can get
Manjaro, is it Manjaro?
Manjaro's the retatrutide,
Right,
no, the tirzepatide even.
Right.
Yeah. So that was like the second generation after Ozempic, and then retatrutide's the third. And there's all these new ones coming through that I can't even be arsed to look at the mechanisms of, like, because they're not even playing on GLP-1 anymore.
Right.
It's like a whole different mechanism like this. And I'm absolutely destroying this, by the way, because I don't remember exactly what it was. But there was like a pre-insulin or an insulin analog that I'd never heard of in my life that they're using now in really high doses at stage 1 trials.
Right.
And it seems to be really strong appetite suppressant as well. So it's gonna get wild.
It's a mystery how
Yeah.
all this stuff is. That's crazy, man.
So I think they're great, obviously, because again, like I think I touched on, if you've got someone who's grossly overweight, it works as an amazing intervention. My only I guess bugbear with them is if someone goes on them and they just think, right, I've just solved a problem, because essentially without any having a nutrition coach alongside to improve your lifestyle habits, you're just pressing pause on it, and once you come off, with those poor habits, they're just going to come flooding back with an increased appetite, and eventually going to go back.
Yeah, because it still doesn't change habits, right?
Yeah.
So people were asking me, "Are you afraid for your work because of these drugs?" It's like, no, not really. Not really. First of all, there's a lot of people that don't respond well to them. But also it's just these people are just going to go as people who lose dramatic amount of weight do normally anyway. They're just going to go up and down in body composition. So they still need to create habitual change. But the beauty of these is it actually gives you almost a break to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you use them effectively, I think they're magic. Right. Because it can just say to someone, right, you've got a clean slate. So it's turned off all that food noise that drives you fucking insane. And it's allowing you to actually make true change. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, adherence is going to go up, isn't it? So
So basically, if you can use them both together, you got the habitual changes and best practices, and then you have that as well. I mean, you're onto something there, and yeah.
But you see the fear mongering online with them, where people are like, "Oh, you'll just lose all your muscle." It's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
The drug itself doesn't make you lose muscle. It's the way people diet that make them lose muscle. It's the same with bone density. Did you guys see that lady who came on? She went fairly viral. She's like, "I've got osteoporosis now because I took GLP-1s," and it went pretty viral. I saw it a few times, and it's like, no, it doesn't increase bone turnover. In fact, they've done that research where they were they made them resistance trained, they made them eat a high protein diet, and bone density went up with the use of GLP-1s. So there's a lot of fear mongering out there, but how anybody uses them is really important.
It's a tool, isn't it? Like anything is a tool. And if you abuse that tool, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
But that's interesting, mate. Because I'll be honest, I didn't really know where I stood on them, to be honest, because as you say, there's so much information out there, online, and you don't know what to believe as well. But James, that'll be it now for Portugal, mate.
Well, get yourself shredded, boys.
That'll be it the next time we go away.
I've got all these vials in my bag, just injecting every day.
Look where I brought Sam.
Honestly, and I say it to other coaches, you should try them,
right, to
see what it's like.
It's good, actually. You're literally the first person I've heard of that's almost used it to experiment themselves. Because obviously, from a training point of view, you hear it, don't you? As a coach, you should try a training method so you know what it feels like before you give it to a client. But I've done it with diets. I've tried every diet under the sun, but I've never I'm not going to start jabbing testosterone in or growth hormone to see what it feels like. But
I know.
Well, a spot would go up, wouldn't it?
We've thought about it.
But that's interesting though. So you've tried that. Yeah.
I've tried most of the peptides, the famous peptides that
BPC,
you see around now.
Yeah.
Because especially with that, the other ones you don't feel a dramatic amount, but I wanted to see what it felt like, because everyone just spoke about food noise, and I was like, I wonder what that's like. Just not to concentrate, and actually the one thing I'll say is you can get so much more work done on it.
Really?
You don't think about food,
right?
Now that's probably not good for yourself, as a power athlete, right? But when I used to sit in front of something, I'd be because it wouldn't give me that distraction of ooh, that thing that I know is in my fridge, or I need a coffee. I need a coffee, or whatever it is. I just sat there and I was like, "Whoa."
Do you think cortisol's a factor in there as well? Because usually when cortisol's up, you're a lot more focused. Am I right in saying that as well?
Yeah, acutely, 100%. It's the reason why, I don't know if everyone's like this, but why generally people are a lot more focused and productive in the morning. It can be based around cortisol release in the morning.
Right.
I don't GLP-1s. I don't think increase cortisol.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
Okay, so kind of still a similar sort of topic, but when you've got someone then, if it fits your macros is been around for ages, and you see some coaches and they're just they almost oversimplify nutrition to a degree, and I know you could argue both ways, but just track your calories, eat whatever you want, hit the protein, anything goes. Where do you stand on? Because you must have seen some people come in. I'm sure you've worked with them who they've got poor health, they've got weight to lose, and they're over consuming, but they're still almost like lack of nutrients in their diet. So where do you think where do you put the importance of getting someone's like energy balance in check, but also getting their nutrients in to support good health?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'll just preface by saying this: like, I love the esoteric, right? I love the fancy shit. Like, if someone wants to sit with me and talk about biochemistry for 3 hours, I love it.
Yeah.
But I get so many clients who are like, what's the hack? Like, people looking for biohacks, or people are like, I want the tip of the spear thing. Like, what's the newest peptide? It's like, dude, your liver enzymes are fucked and you're not hitting a protein target. Like, why are we talking about this? So predominantly I will look first and foremost, and it goes back to this, it's always going to be that food pyramid that we always talk about. Who was it that made the newest version of it where it was like calories, macros, micronutrients, supplements, meal timing?
Was it 3DMJ or
Was it
something?
RP?
It wasn't RP. Who's the other one who's always like, that's going to really annoy me. It doesn't matter anyway. But I do look predominantly at just caloric target first, and then I'll just scale up from there. So if I've got clients that are really adherent to a bunch of stuff already, which I'm really lucky in the job that I do, you have guys that come in that do most of that stuff. So they'll hit a calorie target, they'll hit a protein target, and then I can start to layer on top in terms of micronutrients, macronutrients. But I tend to, because I'm so good, and this is almost a problem in of itself, right? When you hyper focus on one thing, you think everyone's got a gut problem. So I'm always chasing like a fiber target or like a mixture of fruit and vegetable target as well to hit for these guys. But that's after I do all those things.
Yeah.
So I don't care how fancy or how much you've learned or any of those things. I think it always comes back to basics anyway. I wish it didn't, because I'd love to just deal with the the real fancy esoteric stuff like vagal nerve stimulation by sticking something in your ear. Like, I'd love to just do all that, but for most people it's pointless until they've got that other stuff right.
So basically, if you stick to the basic principles then of nutrition as a byproduct, you kind of killing two birds with one stone. Is that what you're basically saying?
I'll always lean back towards 80-20 for most clients anyway. So I still strongly believe that 80% of your food should come from whole foods. Just for like you spoke about, like micronutrient status, or whether it's like appetite regulation, whatever it is. I still think that's super, super important. But you get a lot of, I was listening to, we all know Gary Brecka, don't we? I was listening to him earlier, and it's like, how did you get Dana White in shape? And it's like, oh, because I made him a whole food diet. I made him eat a whole food diet, and I made him take vitamin D3 and omega-3. It's like, so you put him on a whole food diet, so he lowered his caloric intake. It's like, you're making it sound fancy. But most people, like even Dana White, probably wasn't doing that.
Right.
So I still think it's really important to do the basics.
Yeah.
Long story short.
So the carnivores always discard it. I'm sure you can probably already guess what it is, but anyone with any knowledge in nutrition knows that's a mistake for longevity and long-term health. So where do you stand on fiber, and do you think it's undervalued?
Yeah, massively, man. So the carnivore diet's an interesting one. So I would have laughed at that diet 5 years ago. Now, and I'm going to be smart about how I say this, I still don't think it's ideal. But I think for a lot of people who have had, because when people have digestive dysfunction, and I'm sure we'll get into it at some stage, so if someone has small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which they kind of think is the reason for about 35% of IBS cases, right? They're not going to respond well to fermentable carbohydrates. So all of a sudden you put them on this diet, like a carnivore diet, and they feel fucking great, because digestive problems just disappear. So I can put my hand on my heart and I say I've given it to one person ever, because she had the worst constipation of a client I've ever dealt with. She used to go once every 10 days.
Jeez.
And everything she ate other than meat or fat, she used to talk about being bloated up to her ears, which I've never heard anyone explain that. She used to feel like she got bloated in her shoulders.
Jeez, man.
And that was the only thing that took away her symptoms.
Right.
So I think there may be a place for it, but like I wouldn't personally advise that diet for 99.9% of the population.
Right.
But in terms of fiber, yeah, like, and I know like I'm a little bit like I dial into to gut health because obviously it's something I'm passionate about. But I watch and I've seen it now, which is great. Stool tests of people who feel great and are on a carnivore diet, and it's a mess. Like an absolute mess. The shift of non-beneficial bacteria or potentially pathogenic bacteria skyrockets.
Is it really?
And all their beneficial bacteria, like, so we can go through those at some stage, like literally just tanks. And that kind of dysbiosis is associated, I'm going to use that word, with all the diseases of Western civilization. So whether that's type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia, cancer I never really touch on because I don't know enough about. But all those other diseases, that kind of blend, it suits that disease type.
And that's all from the removal of like soluble and insoluble fiber, presumably. Yeah. It's wild.
So fiber I see as if I didn't deal so much in the athletic population, that would be a real cornerstone of what I would do with clients.
Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting. And then where do you stand then on artificial sweeteners? Because obviously we know that they're like I stopped posting about it because I remember the last time I posted about it.
Jim's getting the clown emojis.
I don't even have a big following.
Did you get the clown emojis?
Oh yeah. You had I remember that.
Yeah, this like I did. Like it was a bit like narcissistic, but like I took my shirt off, stood there with a can of Diet Coke and did the old Diet Coke advert drinking it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this woman who obviously followed me came on. She was like, that's it. She's like, delete your Instagram account. You're going to make people sick and unhealthy. Like, get rid of it. Like, straight away. I was like, oh, all right. And so I went in to like, argued back and forth. And it's just like, in order to consume enough aspartame to like potentially drive up my cancer risk, it's like a humongous amount, isn't it?
Hundreds of cans a day.
Yeah, no human's going to get near it. And she was just like, and I was just like, there's nothing to win. Like you've always said, you're not going to change anyone's mind in the comment section, are you?
That's what I'm saying, actually.
I was quite proud of that one.
It's true. That's good. But it's also when someone comes at you, you're like, oh no, fuck you. I need to also like position myself as the expert here. Otherwise, if you let some clown come on and shut you down, then you look like you don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, that's by the by. So, like, where do you stand on artificial sweeteners, and how much do you think is like really pushing the needle?
Nothing really.
No, really?
No.
Yeah.
Like there is some research out there on how it can affect the microbiome a little bit, and it might be a tiny bit negative, but we actually don't know. So like it would be really easy for me to say like people like if you ask me, do I drink them? I do.
Yeah.
I've got 7 Up free in the fridge at home.
I'm
same.
thinking again some Fanta just after this actually.
Dr. Pepper Zero is my go-to.
So would I drink 10 cans of it a day and replace water with it? No.
Yeah.
But I just don't see that as we always talk about like levers that you can pull or rocks to overturn for clients. That's not the fucking one that I bother with. People are like, I put sweetener in my coffee. I'm like, meh.
Yeah.
And like they expect a reaction from me almost sometimes. I'm like, I guess okay. Like keep doing that.
I think it was Martin McDonald talked about it as like people like I think going at him because he's drinking a Monster at like I don't know 8:30 in the morning. He said essentially it's no different to you having a coffee and just putting sweeteners in there. And then carbonated. That's all it is.
And like maybe we'll find out down the line it's slightly more harmful, but it's so well studied, so well studied, that I don't worry about it. Ever. Like if I want a Coke Zero, I'll just have one. I don't drink them every day. It wouldn't be too far off though. Like I'd have one every couple of days anyway. And I just don't see that as the biggest thing that we need to push on with clients.
Right.
And we're lucky in some ways, right? Because although I love the fancy functional medicine stuff, but I'm lucky in the sense that I got exposed to a lot of like your Martin McDonald's, your Spencer Nadolskis of the world. I got exposed to a lot of these guys as I was learning that other stuff, because if you just followed some of the functional medicine guys, you would genuinely believe that like these things like artificial sweeteners like are destroying you in ways, and I can see why people get dragged down that way, and I was lucky to get exposed to both sides of it.
That's interesting.
I know the stuff that actually is, for the most part, I know the stuff that actually is important, and I know the stuff that's just not worth worrying about in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's really interesting, mate. Yeah, it's kind of balanced your perspectives a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, I don't know many. Now, you get exposed to some of them in that world of like real A-type personalities that eat 100% on point. But it's like I've met a handful of them in my life, and they're probably lying.
Yeah.
So, like, I just think that like we'll probably try and remove the alcohol that you're consuming before you look at 7-Up free.
Right.
So then, 2 more. So where do you stand on alcohol then? Like you just touched on it there. So like, do you think alcohol like has a place in the diet for, obviously, it provides a social interaction for many people. And do you think the benefits to completely removing it are there over someone who maybe just enjoys like 1 or 2 glasses of wine on a Friday or something?
That's a good question. I don't think that any alcohol is good for us. Like, straight up, I don't.
So you don't think there's any healthy dose? No.
I just don't. Like, I mean, the removal of alcohol is just difficult from the body. And there's, like, talk about, like, digestion, its effects on, like, your gut lining, its effects on brain function, like, increased acetaldehyde, which we get from alcohol, is neurotoxic. Like, I just don't think there's any that's beneficial. But then you can talk about people who actually, and I'm sure I had seen this research, that people who actually exempt from alcohol don't live as long as those who who drink a little bit of it, probably because of the social interaction, right?
Yeah.
Because it's something to do with people and it brings people together. So like if someone turned around to me and they said, like, I have 2 glasses of wine on a Friday, do you want me to, with my husband, when we finally get the kids to bed after a hard day
Date
or
night sort
a
of thing,
hard
isn't it?
week?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, look, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
But I do think that like one of my old clients, I remember her doctor, she would be in her 70s and her liver function looked fine, and the doctor was like, oh, keep drinking 2 drinks a day, you're doing great. And I'm like, I think that's just fucking shit advice from a doctor. Like, I just think like 14 drinks a week. And don't get me wrong, I went through my party years, man. Like I've drank 100 drinks in a week before, I'm sure. So I'm not coming from a place of judgment. But I think if you're drinking consistently every single day, even if it's 1, 2, 3 beers, I think that's very detrimental to health long term.
It's funny because I similar to you, I think playing rugby, we'd be out all the time, and I stopped when I was about 20 because I thought I'm building my business. I just want to like concentrate on this. After 7 years, I had my first pint. When was it?
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
just-
Yeah, in 7 years, mate.
That's
so I've kind
amazing.
of come to this place now where I'll have one every maybe now and then if I want one. Like I'm not like hardcore. Like I'm not gonna ever drink again. But I'm kind of at this sort of like a nice spot with it now. But why I brought it up was I had one actually over the weekend for the wedding. Cause I was a bit nervous.
of course. Yeah. Well, Guinness again, or not?
Yeah.
It is the best. It is the
You got a
only
tattoo,
drink.
haven't you?
Yeah.
But I noticed like a few days after, I've noticed like I'm not as quite I don't know if it's placebo or I just didn't feel as like energetic as I usually do. I felt like my testosterone's been affected a little bit as well. I just don't feel quite as going into sessions quite as
Like driven. Sort of thing.
driven and so it's weird. I don't know if that's a placebo thing or
Well, like, I mean, some people are predisposed genetically not to break down alcohol particularly well.
Right.
Like, and we can talk about genetics if you want, but like even like the way we break down dopamine, the very end of that. So when you take dopamine and then you try to break it down and get rid of it, you've got these intermediates called dopac and dopal. Anyway, they're quite neurotoxic, so they need to be done and need to be taken out by something called acetaldehyde dehydrogenase, which is the same enzyme that breaks down alcohol. So like when you have to break down alcohol, you're actually left with these horrible intermediates in your brain from dopamine, which are quite neurotoxic as well. So I think there's quite a significant knock-on effect from alcohol. Like I notice it, so I'll drink a handful of times in a year, but I'm an Irish pisshead. Right? I genuinely mean that. Like, so like if it's like we're going out, even now, even though I know all this shit, I'll drink 12, 14 pints of Guinness. Like, and I'll get smashed.
Yeah.
And I'm not the same for 4 days.
No.
Genuinely, I'm not the same for 4 days. And I used to drink relatively casually. And when I stopped doing that, my life changed.
Yeah.
And that was genuinely casually. Like I would have a few with dinner on the Saturday night. I might go to the pub for 3 on a Wednesday. Like real normal drinking habits. But when I stopped doing that, I was like, wow.
It's like life's on HD, isn't it? That's the way I describe it. Like when I stopped it completely, it's like every single day I was just excited to wake up, and I was like, I can't wait to attack it, do my emails in the morning, and it just didn't stop like for years, you know. Like and it is like life's on HD. It's like and I do think about like how people just go through life just drinking every night, and I'm like, oh my god, you must feel like rubbish, you know. I couldn't comprehend that, you know.
Most people don't know the difference though, because if you don't, like, because sometimes with alcohol, you'll always hear this from people maybe who drink in excess or are alcoholics. Like the first few months of coming off alcohol, they don't feel better.
Right.
So it, like, I mean, if it's 6 months, 8 months, a year, but like I think everybody who's ever given up alcohol completely, will say like that their life has changed.
Yeah.
So again, I still fall back into old habits sometimes if I get caught up and I get excited. Like if someone's like, we're going to this place, it's going to be great, there's going to be loads of alcohol, I'm like, fuck it, let's go. And I wake up the next morning because I hadn't done it for so long. I wake up the next morning and I'm like, yeah, this is why I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Genuinely, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, mate. Do you have any more?
Yeah, so last one then is just on caffeine. So just your thoughts on that, because obviously, like, I know, I believe caffeine can be a gut irritant. So I remember like explaining this to someone before, who was using caffeine as an ergogenic aid before football, and I was like, don't just go into it having never tried it before, slam it down before a game, and then all of a sudden you're gonna have a problem. Like, do you encounter, like, because obviously people who work in offices and businesses are often, you know, fueled on caffeine. Do you ever see that as something you've got to like look to remove to improve their gut health, or is it never an issue?
I would say 99% of the time it's never an issue. I have had clients who said like, oh, I took my coffee out and actually my gut health got much better. So I have seen it, but it's not something I normally attack from the get-go, because a lot of the time with people it actually can be quite helpful in the morning to get them to go. Like I'm sure we've all experienced like 2 cups of coffee in the morning, you're like, oh, that's my cue. And so I think in a lot of circumstances it's quite beneficial. Sometimes with like pre-workouts and stuff that get a little bit more aggressive with the amount of caffeine, as people are getting into like 200, 300, 400 milligrams of caffeine, I think that can be a problem as a good irritant. But it's not like people always talk about, like, even around blood pressure, people are like, oh, if you got high blood pressure you can't drink coffee. Some people are sensitive to it, don't get me wrong, but for the most of us, actually the polyphenols have been shown to lower blood pressure in certain circumstances, and coffee, which is great, I'm sure everyone wants to hear, is associated with longevity. So mostly no.
That's my drug of choice. Coffee.
It's the best one.
Last one, just touch on it briefly there, is sodium. Where do you stand on that? Do you ever see that as something you focus in on, or do you just think that by the nature of improving someone's like diet in general, you're gonna like bring that down to a reasonable level?
You're talking about with blood pressure?
Yeah. So obviously it causes acute rises, doesn't it? Or do you think it actually has like a longer term effect?
I think it has a longer term effect in clients who already have significantly elevated blood pressure, but not in all of them, right?
Yeah.
So like it will be something I look at in clients if they're just adding salt to things, if they've got really high blood pressure, and I'll probably just use it to knock off, right? I'll just be like, just in case, let's remove sodium from diet. But most people actually don't, like same with coffee, most people, that's not their reason for elevated blood pressure. Like I understand having excess sodium in the blood increases volume, right? Because it draws water, but I've never seen it where I've removed sodium from someone's diet and their blood pressure's just dropped. So I don't think it's the key factor around blood pressure for clients. But yeah, sometimes if they've got aggressively high blood pressure, I'll take it out.
Just off the back of that last one, I can't remember what it is, but like years back when I first did MNU, I remember talking to Martin about it, and he said that if you actually don't have enough sodium in your diet, you can potentially become insulin resistant.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, what's the mechanism? And he said, see if you can find out. I never did, but I just wondered if you did off the top of your head.
No, I don't know that.
I'm sure, I'd have to go back. I could probably search on the mentoring lab, and I'm sure it's on there.
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, no.
No worries. Yeah. Right, do you want to go into your questions, or do you want to...
Should we go into mine?
Yeah,
ready
sure.
for these? Okay, so we have a segment of the show, mate. What's new this week? So they submit questions and we ask them. So, one, I keep hearing about gut health being the second brain, is that just a buzzword or is there something to it?
No, actually, like I think it's a buzzword calling it the second brain, but it is part of the what's called the enteric nervous system. So it is. I wouldn't call it comparable to the brain at all, but But as part of the nervous system, yeah, it's fairly similar.
Right. Okay. Two. One best thing you can add to your diet to support your gut.
It's just increased fiber.
Increase fiber.
Now, and I'll that's nuanced though a little bit, right? Because I don't know if any of you guys have ever tried to do it. Like people will then just go and take like fiber supplementation.
Yeah.
Psyllium husk and stuff.
Yeah, man. Like if you're not used to that and you put 5 grams of psyllium husk in a drink and drink it, you're going to know all about it. So what I say to people, I generally don't say nuts because they're such high in calories, but like adding seeds and stuff to diet can be really beneficial. Or like it's always important to remember the beneficial bacteria from your gut only feed off fiber. Like it's really important to recognize that all the so-called bad ones will either feed off bile, fat, or protein predominantly. So just finding a variety of different fruit and vegetables can be most beneficial for people looking at gut health. Now, if someone's going through antibiotic use, then using combination probiotics at the same time seems to mitigate a lot of the side effects. Not all of using antibiotics.
What's your thoughts on like kombucha and all of that? Because I know that's really popular, isn't it, at the moment? And
Yeah. So when you look at fermented foods do not colonize, right? So people are like, I've taken antibiotics, I'm going to take these probiotic containing foods. They don't repopulate your gut. They'll work acutely. So like they'll play their effects. So if you have lactobacillus or bifidobacterium, which are the common ones in those, they'll go through your gut, play their effect, whatever that is, and then they leave. Whereas the only way to actually proliferate and grow beneficial bacteria is to feed it fiber.
Right. Okay.
Or prebiotics, you'll see them called. So yeah, it's important to note that.
Right. Okay. You kind of touched on it here, but thoughts on ferments? Are they really that good?
Yeah, I do think they definitely have a role in people's diet. It's not where I generally lean if I'm trying to solve a problem. So like if someone comes to me and they have whatever, like a bacterial overgrowth or they have SIBO or something, I won't go down that route because it would just take so long for them to have an effect. I'd normally just want capsule probiotics, whatever probiotic I want to use, or antimicrobial, whatever I want to use, and use those to clear the problem. And then afterwards, people always talk about like they used to call it like, do you remember the 4 R's? Like, sure. So it was like remove, repair, re-inoculate. They used to go down this route of like a way to fix digestion. And then it's like rebalance at the end. Now, that's not ideal. It's a good structure to have. But then like at the rebalance at the end, that's where you'd start to add in like fermented foods and prebiotics and stuff to help the beneficial bacteria proliferate and grow. People don't recognize that sometimes their gut dysfunction isn't because they've caught something per se. It's because their beneficial bacteria isn't abundant enough to keep the bad stuff in check.
Right, okay. How do I know if my gut is healthy or not? Are there signs I should look out for?
The Bristol stool chart isn't a bad way to go. Like now I use what's called like a metabolic assessment form, and there's like, there's too many questions to go through. But like, do you get reflux or indigestion? Do you get bloating or distension after food? And sometimes some bloating and distension is fine. Do you have a lot of flatulence? Does it stink, right? Can play a role here. And then what does your bowel movement look like?
Right.
It's generally a good place to start.
Right.
People will often come in and be like, I want a stool test. And I'm like, what's your guts like? I have no problems. And then I'm like, because something will flag generally, because none of us are perfect. And we still don't know what the perfect blend of microbiome is. So like, I don't like doing stool tests on like healthy people who don't have any symptoms, because do you guys know like what H. pylori is?
No.
H. pylori is a really common infection that we get in our stomach, right? So like you hear people who get duodenal ulcers or reflux. That can be from H. pylori that implants itself in your stomach. But 50% of the population have it. So like chances are like 2 out of 3 of us probably have it.
Wow.
So if that picks up on a stool test, it's obviously commensal or good or kind of inert in some circumstances, but then very virulent and dangerous in others. So just using like the old Western way of just eliminating it because it's a bacteria, I don't think is a good idea.
Right.
So I know this is going on a little bit of an adjunct, but just sometimes I worry with people where they're like, oh, how do I make it better? How do I make it better? And you're like, you eating loads of fiber? Yeah. Bowel movement every day, like no bloating distension, not loads of gas, no reflux. I'm like, yo, like you're in a select few of the population here. Just keep going.
Right, right. Yeah, it's an interesting, because I had, from what I was having like, and it was because of my caffeine intake, I think, but I was having like, I would be sat down on the sofa at the end of the night and I just have like out of nowhere, almost like a skipped heartbeat feeling. I don't know if you've ever had that before, but, and it was going on for a period of a few months and I just was on top of it was when I started the business, so it was probably stress, caffeine related, more than likely. But then I got more conscious then about increasing my fiber intake too. And coincidentally, actually, it started to stop and I haven't had it in years since. Someone told me it was something along the lines of the alkaline level of, or something like that. Or was that just like voodoo?
So the alkaline acid base is important in digestion, but actually the large intestine is really acidic, and it should be that way.
Right. So for anything that hits that, it's going to be gobbled up, isn't it?
Right. So like stomach is supposed to be quite acidic, small intestine slightly more alkaline, and then when you get down to the large intestine, it becomes acidic again. So like a lot of the pathogenic bacteria, you guys might have heard of some of them, like Klebsiella or Cryptosporidium, these kind of bacteria that
that's above my head. Yeah.
It's just, why do I assume people know this shit? Like, but,
we're just like nodding along,
but they don't live in an acidic environment. So like fiber, or like what's called like postbiotics. So when you feed a bacteria, or when you feed beneficial bacteria fiber, they poop out postbiotics. So these things are like butyrate, propionate, and acetate, and they make the environment really acidic, and they're really beneficial systemically outside of the large intestine. So like the alkaline idea that you're pushing down, I get the argument, because automatically people assume acidity is bad.
Right.
It's not. It's necessary. It's balance. It's balance, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. Does stress really mess with your digestion, or is that just an old wives' tale?
Super does.
Yeah,
it does. So like cortisol directly breaks down tight junctions in your gut. So we have like these tight junctions, because you have to remember the gut lining is they're columnar cells. They're literally one layer deep. So they're tiny. So like you actually have more protection from your skin than you do from your gut lining. And in between you have like what's called like zonulin, and zonulin helps to break, or when it starts to break apart, you release zonulin from your gut lining. But cortisol directly starts to pull apart your gut lining. Wow. So it does play a major role. Like, so in stressed environments, you see a difference in microbiome than those that don't live in a stress environment.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
well, we'll pick a couple more. So can gut health actually help with things like skin issues or sleep, or is that a bit of a stretch?
It's half right. So like people will always say, I've got eczema or I've got psoriasis, therefore I have leaky gut, for example. That's not true. Like I often hate the phrase, you guys have probably heard it, all disease starts in the gut. Like, what a fucking stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
But like there is these strong associations between skin issues and digestive dysfunction. So like if you look at the research, they can never find correlation causation, right? So like they find leaky gut or intestinal permeability in eczema and psoriasis quite regularly. So is there just a systemic inflammation problem here that's causing issue on the skin that stems from the gut? Maybe. Or even if you look at like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or H. pylori, like I said, they're strongly associated with like rosacea that you see on people's skin. So there is this, because the gut has an axis with every single other major organ. So like even like gut kidney axis, gut liver axis, gut skin, gut cardiovascular, gut brain axis. So there is this crosstalk between everything. And again, like you'll hear people in my realm, like functional medicine people, like, I've got psoriasis, so what do I do? Oh, you have to have a gut check. It's like, no, probably not. But there is an association. Like even with acne, there's a strong association with gut health. Yeah.
What do you think can flare it up then? Because I remember, like, it could be an N equals 1, but I remember two instances where I was like really highly stressed in life, and I would just break out in spots all along there. I was just like, what's this? And I was actually one time, I was in like imposing stress because I was in quite a big deficit. I can remember the one time, but I was eating more nutritiously, and I can remember just breaking out all over my face.
Skin issues, so like acne is slightly more, it's not necessarily more complex than the other ones, but acne has so many different mechanisms. So like people will always say, oh, if I fix my gut, I'll fix my acne. That's not true. But what can happen if it's an element of stress, and this is semi-common in people, all these bad, and not all of them are the exact same, but all these bad bacteria have these outer shells called lipopolysaccharides. They're called gram-negative bacteria.
Right.
And they can get across the gut lining if you've got permeability. And when they get into circulation, they cause... Now, endotoxemia is a really strong word because endotoxemia can lead to death, right? It's obviously not that case in general population, but they attach to like toll-like receptors all around the body and create inflammation. They even create inflammation on the skin. So that could be the connection. But lowering in stress leads to, over time generally, a lowered immune system, which can lead to skin issues and acne as well.
It's interesting, yeah.
Right. Well, we got the last one, mate, and I think I know the answer to this already. If someone wanted to do one simple thing to improve their gut health, what would it be?
I'll go one lifestyle, one diet, right? So if you're going to go dietarily, it would be increased fiber intake, right? So just... People often lean towards just green because they think just green is the best. But within all the different colors, we have different types of polyphenols. So like you guys probably heard of like curcumin or turmeric. These are like polyphenols that you get. They're slightly different to fiber or prebiotics, but they directly feed the good bacteria within our gut as well. So using like different spices, using a wide variety of fruit and vegetables in different colors can play a role in the ecosystem of your large intestine. Because it's not about having loads of one, it's about diversity that seems to be the most beneficial. And then with lifestyle, exercise plays a huge role in our gut microbiome in a positive way. And then stress reduction, like it's the same shit when we talk about anything, isn't it? You need to lower your stress, you need to sleep, you need to sleep, you need to do all these things to affect your digestion. I think sometimes... And I fall for this as well when I deal with clients. Like, we're going to supplement our way out of this because they play a much bigger role in digestive function than they do in general day-to-day clientele. And sometimes I just try and push that way when I often neglect some of the other lifestyle factors.
Is that because it's like the lower hanging fruit just to give someone a supplement? Is it?
Tablet, easy. And in fact, some people don't even adhere to that shit.
Oh, right.
So that becomes difficult. But like sleep and stress do play a major role lifestyle-wise. I think they're kind of overlap anyway.
Well, mate, we really appreciate it. Like
That's been quality. Yeah.
That was fascinating. That was really, really good. Genuinely, that was awesome. If people want to get in touch and like want to work with you, where would they find you?
I'm becoming more active on social media.
You
again.
are? Seen you.
Yeah, I've seen you. Yeah.
Greg Foley Health, and I think I'm just under Greg Foley on Facebook. I am trying to be slightly more active on there and give out a bit more information more regularly. So yeah, you can find me there.
Do you do your own stuff as well alongside the? Yeah.
Yeah, I do a little bit. Like I don't have to take on. Like I'm in a lucky position where I don't have to take on a lot of clients. But if the situation is right and I think I can help, I do take on private clients as well.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's really cool, awesome. Mate. Well, anyway, we'll attach all that in the show notes and stuff, but do you want to see us out in your crispy voice?
Crispy voice. Right.
He's got that low voice, that just, like that radio voice.
Barry White now.
Yeah, Barry White.
Serenade us, come on.
Guys, if you've enjoyed this, I'm feeling the
pressure's on now.
Guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating or review and subscribe on Spotify and iTunes, and we'll catch you in the next one. Boom.